In today's episode, we talk about the 5 F's of fear response. We look at the power of humour and playfulness. David talks about his lifeboat metaphor, which helped him to change his life story, and the difference between drains versus radiators, and how these affect the people around you. Welcome to Man Quest Define Meaning, where we help men navigate modern life, find their true purpose, and redefine manhood. I'm your host, James, and each week, inspiring guests share their journeys of overcoming fear, embracing vulnerability, and finding success. From experts to everyday heroes, get practical advice and powerful insights. Struggling with career, relationships, or personal growth? We've got you covered. Join us on Man Quest to Find Meaning. Now, let's dive in. You mentioned the 5 F's. Can you go through the 5 F's with us, please?
Yeah, they're a bit naughty, actually, because I don't know if you remember, I always talk about the 5 F's. The fight, fright, flee, freeze, flock, and reproduction, which was quite naughty, actually. And I think what it is was there's the fight or flight. When you've got a situation that you're confronted with the fear, you can either run away or you can deal with it. And sometimes you've only got a split decision to make that. And you get these people that win, like the Pride of Britain. They've run into a building and pulled people out when it's on fire. They've dived into a raging river and pulled a child out. And when you interview them after, I can just about swim a length of the pool. I don't know what come over me. And it's just that sometimes you have that. And being a firefighter, that's heroic, absolutely heroic. So it's that fight or flight. So first of all, we have to decide if we're going to fight or we're going to flight. I tend to go for flight a lot of the time, being the coward that I am. And then there's freeze, and because you sometimes with an animal, they could be eating something, and then a big lion comes along and they just freeze. But I think what I mean as well in society, freeze, just stop. Take in the situation. If you're worrying about something, stop it. Right. And ask the question. Right. Because you can feel yourself spiraling. How much of this is real? What evidence? Is it happening today? Am I in immediate danger now? No. And then, the flock, I always think about the flocking was being with it. I call it my CPU. I have a thing called a close protection unit. And when you get like superstars or royalty, and it's lovely now that I was watching the podcast the other day, and the royal family, they're on social media now, and Prince William and Kate, and it's lovely. And they go out, they shake hands with the crowd, and it's lovely. But they've got 2 or 3 big bodyguards around them, and if anybody comes forward, they'll protect them. And I have a CPU, I have a close protection unit, and they all know who they are. There's my wife, who's the head of my CPU, my 2 boys, Leo and Ryan. There's my mate, Big Al. There's my former head teacher I used to work with, Carl Babartsi, and my mate Lee Pace, who co-wrote the book with me. There's Big Al, and there's my sponsor from AA, Alex, and then my sisters, Anne-Marie and Helen. They're my immediate close protection unit. Then I've got layers around them. So if you ever try to attack me, you've got to get past them. And Big Al's 6'7", so you wouldn't be messing about with him. Yeah, so and when I say with my CPU, sometimes we have, I think it was Steve Harvey, the American talk show host. He said, there's nothing kills a big dream better than small-minded people. Going around and, if I've got this idea, I'm going to ask everybody, and everybody gets their opinion. In the end, you talk yourself out of it. If I have an idea, I go to my CPU, first of all. So my flock, my tribe, you know what I mean? Yeah, so there's fight, flight, freeze, flock, and I forget the 5th one, but whatever it is, but it's about reproduction. But yeah. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah. The CPU sounds pretty much if you're in a little bit of trouble. So say, for example, you do have a little bit of money issues.
Yeah.
You've got your CPU to assist.
Example, I've got friends, and I've got great friends, I've got businesses, I've got contacts. And the other week I've been a bit worried lately, because obviously this time last year I was fully booked for October is National Poetry Week. Next year in March is World Book Week. And I was absolutely blocked, and I was booked out. And then I've still got a lot of gigs coming in, but I was solid. It was great. But at the moment, I'm classed as an enrichment activity for schools. I'm the icing on
Yeah.
the top of the cake. And it's like yourself, this is one of the first things that cut back. It shouldn't be cut back because poetry helps children to express themselves. It helps them to write. It's great for the self-confidence. It's great for the self-worth. It's a wonderful vehicle for all-round thing. And I would say that being a poet, but it is. But that's cut back. So my financial insecurities, I've been riddled with it lately. And you can go around and say to your mate, "Oh, can you give us 100 quid?" But that's great, but you've got to pay that back. I spoke to my mate Carl, who was the head teacher where I used to work. And I said, "Do you think I'd be all right teaching in secondary school?" He says, "Yeah, I think you'd be great." Because he knows me and he's seen me teaching. Been my mate for 10 years. I've got my mate Lee, who's works in a secondary school, middle school. He said, "No, Dave, you'd be absolutely fantastic." They're the ones I seek the advice from. I could ask one of my mates who loves me, who's a construction worker, for example, who's never ever seen me in class. He could say, "Oh, Pep, I think you're great," but he's never actually seen me teach. And then I think Carl then put me in touch with a local secondary school. I went to meet the head teacher, and I've now got 1 day a week. So that's a certain amount of money coming every month for the next year. Because that was because I
Mm.
went. And what I was saying about the CPU is, my son's a bodybuilder, so I'm trying to lose weight at the moment. So I ask him questions about nutrition, and my other he's a plumber and a builder and really talented guy. So I go around affairs of the heart. I go and speak to my wife. Because what was terrible in the past, James, was asking every Tom, Dick, and Harry's opinion. My wife would still argue I'm still the same. But if I ever wanted to buy a car, I would ask everybody's opinion. What do you think about Volkswagens and best cars in the world? Oh, my mate had one, they're terrible. And I'd get all this misinformation, and I was just confused. So my CPU, they're there to protect me, they're there to advise me, and I have great fun with them as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. One thing I'm doing at the moment is asking my close friends, where am I not fully stepping out? Or where do they see me perhaps not being able to fully embrace my true self? Them kind of
absolutely.
questions. Because again, we can ask ourselves these questions, but quite often we might have a blind spot. They can
Yeah,
see our blind spots.
absolutely.
What I want to cover now is obviously you talk about poetry and humor, both things to do with playfulness.
Yeah,
And I think playfulness is so important, especially in
yeah,
children's lives, but also I think playfulness is very important in adults' lives. And
yeah,
so I feel sometimes we can get overcome by all this fear. But I
yeah,
think playfulness is a good way to really allow ourselves to step into this fear because playfulness, it gives us this really humorous or soft way of dealing with fear. To say,
yeah,
for example, you you might be fearful that down the road you might see somebody.
yeah,
You could have a bit of fun actually, to go walking down the road and get dressed up in different
yeah,
outfits, or you could go down and just be somebody different.
yeah.
We've got great things to do. The question is, how can someone be playful in the moment instead of fearful?
Yeah, it's just can you remember as children. I mean, stop being silly. Stop being so silly. I urge people start being silly. Start being really silly. I am a really silly person, and I love the word silly. And don't be wrong, mate. If I'm talking with the CEO of a company and he wants me to come in, or she wants me to come in and do a session of workshops for mental health and well-being. Obviously, I'm not going to go in with a joke nose on and crack jokes because that's not what they're after. But I know that we always say in AA, for example, Alcoholics Anonymous, that you go into a room and people always think when they first go to an AA room, it's going to be full of broken people and people think they'll be there with like raincoats on with a piece of string and drinking out of a bottle. You go into an AA room, there's people laughing and joking and winding each other up and banter, and it's brilliant because we always say we laugh at things that which we used to cry about in the past. And my mates will say, and the humour's it's gallows humour sometimes. But, and again, you'll know that with firefighters, you'll know that with nurses, you know that with police officers. Some of the things that you've seen is quite horrific in your line of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you don't trivialize it and joke about it, but you have to add a bit of fun to that to make. And one of my greatest inspirations is working with children, just really silly. Get the laughter of children. I think I know I want to find a quote, and I'm sure it was something like a Socrates or Plato or something. He always said, "When do you know?" He used to ask him once, "How do when you go past the classroom, how do you know there's great learning going on?" He said, "Because I hear laughter." And that's what it is. It's about this laughter. I've got a friend, a guy that's helping us with the putting the book together, a guy called Andy Cope, and he's wrote a book called The Art of Being Brilliant. You ever heard of him? Great.
I've
And
heard of Andy Cope, I think, yes.
Dr. Andy Cope, he went to Loughborough University and he did a PhD in happiness. And he's actually officially he is the doctor of happiness. And he talks about the two percenters, the people in life, the ones that really achieve true happiness. There's only 2% of the population. And I try every day to be a two percenter. I try and see the good of everything, try and see the happy in everything. And it's just about not taking life that serious. If you want serious, flick on the news and look at the politicians and look at what's happening around the world. I spend most of my time on YouTube watching Family Guy, Kevin Bridges, remakes like remember Porridge and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Only Fools and Horses, and Morecambe and Wise, the classics. I just watch things that are really funny. And that I need that tickle, that little funny bone tickled on a constantly. And I do. I tend to find the funny in most things. And I am a self-confessed, very silly person. I see things that, like, we'll talk about later. I was down in Newquay in Cornwall, 1981, so I was 18. So what was that? 44 years ago? Yeah, 44. I'm really old now. And my mate Keith, and he said, we were down in Newquay, he says, we were walking into town, he says, have you seen the size of the sparrows down here in Newquay in Cornwall? I said, why? He said, they come to Rugeley, our sparrows that batter them. I thought, why would sparrows be fighting? But I can imagine like a Cornish sparrow, and I'll have a go at you, mate. But then I thought, if sparrows, I wonder if they chirp in different accents. But then I thought, what about worms and what about earwigs? And I thought, I wonder if insects have different accents. And that's where the ideas in my poem come from. For me, all spiders are Geordie. Look at me, I'm a spider man. I'm spinning the web like. And the tadpoles are Scousers. I'm Teddy the tadpole. I live in a bog. Worms are Scottish. I'm Willie the worm, and I like worm because there's lots of Scottish roll their R's. I'm Willie the worm. I roll in a reggle. These come from Birmingham because they're really busy, but they talk really like that. All right, I'm a bee from Birmingham, and I just am a bit busy. But that's my life. And I look at things, and Billy Connolly says, I'm not funny. I just make the ordinary extraordinary. And I do, I see things that are really funny. And I love, remember Victoria Wood?
No.
Victoria Wood, I'm older than you. She's Julie Walters, Victoria Wood. She's one of the greatest comedians ever. She wrote, but she was on about she just makes things really funny, everyday things. Just put a certain twist on them, and yeah, I try my best to see the humour in everything. And with my poems, I give everything a character, a personality. And I said about my fear, I give it a personality. I give it a person, and it's like when you go out with your mates, you go in the pub, and I can imagine most of your friends are they quite positive people.
Some of them, not all of them.
Yeah, we'll talk later on in the second half about drains and radiators. But you normally, if you've got a choice of a night out, you normally surround yourself with positive people. And I always, if you've got this drain in your life, oh, James, I'm having a terrible time. I don't have any, and my fear's like that. Oh, I'm so scared. Oh, it's terrible. And he's got this moaning voice. Oh, I think we're going to die soon. I think the car's going to fail its MOT. I think you're going to have no money. Or I think the house is going to flood. I think your passport's going to, I think you're going to get lost on holiday. And that's what it says all the time. But I have to just see it as like a moaning auntie or a and I
Yeah,
choose
yeah.
not to spend time with them. Yeah, I know that. I'll be back in a minute. I hear what you're saying. I'll be back in a minute. I'm just going to go and talk to James. Yeah, and when I come back, they'll still yeah. And I think I'm gonna. You're going to burn yourself when you make a cup of tea, and she'll just carry on, and he'll carry on forever. So what I tend to do is I see life very differently. My wife laughs. Sometimes I'll say something like or whatever, I said to one day, I said, do you think daffodils are sad? And she went, where's this idea come from? Or we'll go along and I'll see something in cloud. I can see faces in clouds, and
Yeah.
I think, do you think clouds are sad, Paul? I said, I don't know, David. And do you think waves are happy? But I give everything a personality. But I choose, and I choose to see the world. And I've got a friend, Rowena, I send her all these little, I'm one of these pain in the bums. Your mate that sends you meme after meme after meme. I'm one of them, sadly. But yesterday there was a meme, it was on Instagram. Two little girls, they're probably 3 or 4, and they're outside. It's the middle. It looks like it's summertime. They've got rain maps up, but they've got a big bowl full of water. One's mixing the bowl, and the other one's got a teapot, and they're just in a kitchen, but they're just making water and mud. And it's the middle of summer. The one's singing jingle bells at the top of her voice, jingle bells, jingle. But I thought, how many times have you sang jingle bells in the middle of the summer? You know what I mean? Or when was the last time you made it? I'm asking you, when was the last time you made a mud pie?
Or a while ago.
Put stones in it to decorate it and give it to your mom and say, I made a mud pie for you. And most of us,
Many years ago.
I haven't done it for 50 years, but remember the day you made that mud pie? You got the best mud you could, you mixed it all up, you put it in, you patted it so it was a nice shape, you put little stones around it, you put little twigs to make it look great, and you gave it to your mom. You know,
Yeah.
I did that for mum once. She said, Dave, you're 24, get a job. So I had to.
Oh,
Again, see, that's just, I try my best to make people laugh because you laughed and that made me feel good.
yeah,
I,
that's just very true. Wasn't
I
there a
get a lot of people.
guy? Wasn't there? There's a guy. I can't think of his name, but he was basically he. I think it was in the 70s, and he was diagnosed with an illness
Yeah,
that by the doctors, and they
yeah,
said that it couldn't be cured. So he
yeah,
thought to himself, he could be cured. So he went and sat. He hired. He went. I think he went. I think he initially started in hospital
yeah,
watching funny comedies, as you
did.
mentioned. Some of them you mentioned, and I think the hospital eventually said you can't do that, and he went into a hotel. And I'm
Yeah,
sure he went back to his doctors and they looked at him and the illness that he had gone.
yeah. That was it was the book called The Secret. I think it's. Have you ever read the book called The Secret?
I know of the secret, yes.
Yeah, Rona, we'll get the link. I think it's Rona Byrne or Rona. But in there was a guy who was ill, and basically just he chose to watch videos. I think back in the 70s it was videotapes he was watching. But nowadays I spend most of my time on YouTube just watching things. If you look at my YouTube, it's these guys, these restoration. You'll get like an old battered toy, like a tin toy from the 1930s, but they'll get it and or it'll be somebody making a shelter in the woods. Yeah, but again, when was the last time you made a den with your mates?
Probably a while ago, but
Can
I'm
you
sure
remember?
there's occasions when we have done it in the past. So I'm
Can
very
you remember?
outdoorsy.
Can you remember the last time when you were a kid and you made a den with your mates and it was the best den ever and you'd be really creative. You'd get like wooden crates and or put a window here and well, it was just a load of twigs and a load of grass in a local field, but it was your den and okay. And you got a box and you pretended that was the cooker and you sat in there and you were inside a pot. But we lose all that as children. Well, when was the last time you put the sprinkler on in your garden just with your pants on and running back and forward in the sprinkler? If we did that now, we'd be arrested. But children, and it's just the innocence of children when they're just running around carefree. And for some reason, we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
That inner child, that little silly boy and girl within us, we lose it because we have to conform. And again, mate, if you're trying to do a presentation, you're getting paid, but you don't turn up in your pants and run through sprinklers because that's. And I'm not urging that as a 60-year-old man, you can't do that because you will be arrested. But what I'm saying is that inner child, the things that we did as children, we'd spend hours just spinning around with your arms out, just spinning around until you fell over. Or you'd be in a paddling pool and you'd be shivering. Your mum said, "Come out." My James, get out, your lips are blue. When was the last time you played in a paddling pool till your lips were blue and you couldn't? That's what we did as children. And it's just,
Mm.
but we lose all that as adults. But there's a part of me hasn't lost that. there's a part of me, and I think because I've got little nieces, great nieces and nephews now, I'm the greatest builder, the den builder. And I say, should we make a mud pie for your mum? And people say, "Oh, Pep, you're brilliant keeping the kids entertained." I said, "No, it's all about me. I want to make a mud pie, but if I've got a 5-year-old with me, it makes me look good. But it's me that wants to make them." When was the last time you built something out of Lego?
It's probably last year.
Oh, that's good. That's good then. You know what I mean? But it's just
I've got nieces and nephews,
right.
young. So
And I'm blessed enough on a daily basis to go into schools to be really silly, and my poems are really silly, and it's and a lot of my poems they do contain bum, poo, fart,
oh
pants.
yeah, kids. Willie is a big one
That,
for
that,
little
that,
young boys.
no,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got two boys. I've got two boys, but I've always said that you can't mention Willie or boobies because if you do, you have to go to teacher jail. That's where all the naughty teachers live. But you get away with bum, pants, bra, knickers, poo, wee, and fart. They're the really naughty ones.
yeah,
The secret is my poems. I don't actually say them because it's. I've got one called the Scarecrow Rap, and it's outstanding in my field. That's what I'm told. No need for money, no need for gold. I got straw for hands, no fingers or a thumb. I got a wooden pole right up my and if kids all shout bum, but no, up my back. Why would you ruin my poem? But I play the mantle of fool and they love it. The pirate was scared of the sea. We scrub the decks and we play the part. Life's so busy, there's no time to fart, no time to rest. I play this like mantle. You're ruining my poems now. But if you look on my website, you'll see children crying that because for a
yeah,
9 year
yeah,
old,
yeah,
that's comedy gold. But again, sometimes I've been to 200 schools and they've loved it. But I know certain schools they have to be a bit careful. You're on about the Willie word. If you look, I think it's and I love his work. David Walliams. I think it's chapter 13, page 133, and it's Boy with a Dress. And then there's a little lad, I think he's called Rory Malone or something. But whatever happens, he talks about he got his willy stuck in a test tube, which I find that hilarious. But that's on the shelves of the schools all over Britain, which is funny. But sometimes some schools I go into and they'll say, "Oh, you do mention bum and pants a little bit." And some of them, there was one school down in London, I didn't actually get booked because they were scared I was going to mention bum and pants. But I said, "Have you got the boy with the dress in you?" She said, "Yeah." I said, and it's a fantastic book and it's really funny and I'm not offended by it. But yeah, chapter 30, I think it's page 133. You can look it up. Rory
yeah.
Malone with his Willie in a test tube, which I find that hilarious. But yeah, you got to be so careful. So I don't go anywhere near that. But it's just really wholesome. It's fun. It's just yeah. It's what kids in the playground. It's what they talk about when the teachers are not there. They're all
Yeah,
telling jokes and fart jokes and poo jokes and snot jokes, and that's what they
yeah,
laugh
yeah.
about. That's the inner child within me. So that's where, and I get paid for doing it, which is even better.
It's a perfect job. It's just that I think humor and laughter and all that kind of stuff. It's so important for us because as you said, it just wakens up the inner child. But for somebody who's perhaps in a cycle of fear,
Yeah.
how can they give themselves permission to rewrite the story that they're going through?
Yeah, you can start anytime, but again, like we said, and I was there. If you'd have said to David Anderson 8 years ago when I was off work, it'd be hang on, 8 years ago, 2017, November 2017, which is 8 years ago. If you'd have said to me 8 years ago, I was there and just I said to my boss, I was at work and I was struggling. He said, "How you doing, Dave?" I says, "Carl, I've got to be honest with you. I think I'm a puncture or a speeding ticket away from a nervous breakdown. I have the slightest little thing." Now, back in that, it was the darkest place it was ever been. I didn't see any hope for the future. I really was. I've learned now that suicide ideation. I didn't contemplate suicide, but I said that. I said we were talking one night, Paul and I said but somebody had passed away or whatever it was, and I said, if anything ever happens to me, don't worry, Paul. I said, "But if I went to bed in one night and I didn't wake up, don't be sad because I'm done now." She said, "That's a terrible thing to say." I said, "No, I don't want to die, but I'm done now. I can't live with this head any longer." That's when I was, what, 50, what was that? I was 54, and 56 I was then. And now I want to live till I'm 120 now. I've got that many things I need to do. I want to learn new instruments. I want to visit places. I've still got careers that I want to develop. I want to learn languages. I've got that much I need to do, so I can't be dying just yet. So when you're in that really dark place, first of all, and it's like getting the boat. I always think it's like drowning. You're just drowning in this sea of negativity. What I did, and I'm not urging first of all, ask for help. That's the first thing. If you've got a listener out there who is absolutely in the middle of self-centered fear and anxiety, imagine yourself, you're in the sea drowning. First of all, ask for help. First of all, tread water. And know you're going to get saved. You can swim, and this isn't going to last forever. It's only going to be a short time. Somebody is coming to help you, and somebody will always come to help you. So first of all, do things. So be honest with people, be open with people, and if waving on that means shooting off a flare or doing something, get noticed, and somebody will come along and they might just give you a life jacket. You're still in the water. You're not going to drown now. And that's fantastic. And for me, that was me when I went to the doctor because I had a chemical imbalance. I had tablets from it. That was my particular journey. I'm not saying that everybody had. And I was absolutely antidepressants. My mate Carl said to me, because I eventually went off work in the October, but by the March, I was really sad in March. And Carl said, why don't you go to the doctor? So, oh, no, I don't want tablets. No, I'm all right. I'm all right. I said, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. It's not, I've just said that to you, Carl, and my phone's just pinged and his name's come up on the screen there. He's one of my CPU. I've just mentioned Carl and it went, ping. It's a message. Again, that's a higher power. That's the universe. That's a signal again. So Carl, I said to Carl, I'm going to start walking, Carl. I'm going to start walking. And if I'm still bad in August, I'll go to the doctors. And he always said to me, "Can you remember that time you were going to walk yourself out of depression, David?" And I laugh about it now because you can't walk yourself out of depression, but you can do more exercise. So first of all, be honest and open. Go to people around you and say to people, "I'm struggling." Tell your loved ones, "I'm really struggling here." Go and see a doctor, and you might have to have antidepressants. But to me, that was the life jacket. I knew that I wasn't going to drown, and that just gave me a bit of so I could think there. Whereas before, I was just thinking of how I'm going to live. I now know that I'm not going to die, but hang on, it's cold in this water and I'm soaking. I need to get out of the water, so I need to get into the boat. So somebody's going to come and get me into the boat. So in the boat, that could be being open and honest with your friends, going to a help group, starting write poetry, journaling, doing mindfulness, and then eventually you're going to try and help other people get in the boat with you, which is great. But eventually, once the boat's full, they're going to drop you off on the beach. But my mate David said to me once, God didn't save us from drowning just to have us die on the beach. So when you get to the beach, then you think there's people out there still saving lives. I've done my bit. I'm going to head into the town now and I'm going to start living my life. I'm going to get these wet clothes off. I'm going to get some dry clothes off. And what I might do some fundraising in the town to fund the people that are saving in the boats. And that's me. That's supporting charities like Mind and different things. So the first thing I do is I was genuinely. So if you're struggling, if you're drowning, ask for help. Yeah. Be honest with the people around you. Visit the doctors. Speak to other people that you know that of what's their experience. If need be, have medication because sometimes it's a hormone. It's a chemical imbalance inside your head, and sometimes tablets are on there. Start journaling. Practice mindfulness. Get out in the open. Walk more. And then be honest and put back. The big thing on at the moment, James, is boundaries. Put boundaries in place. And even I'm not saying you give up your job, but sometimes you might be doing a job that's killing you. And if you have a heart attack or you die, you're no good to your family anyway. So sometimes I was in a job, I was a deputy head teacher, I was earning a good wage, I had a pension, and I had a great job, and I carried on. I think I would have been dead if I'd have carried on because it was just, for me, it was just so stressful. And I left to do that, to do the Pep the Poet. And I've earned as much as I did as a deputy head teacher for working half the time and doing what I love. But at the moment, it will get better. It's gone a bit quiet at the moment. So what I've done now is I'm going to focus on secondary schools, talking to teenagers about self-centered fear and anxiety. I'm going to start working at a senior school. So I've just taken I've got another arm to my business and planning. But the only thing is be honest and talk to people and ask for help. And then identify your CPU. Look at the people in your life. Who are the ones that in If you were stuck at Manchester Airport in the middle of the night, who would you ring for a lift? Who'd be the ones that'll say, "I'll be there I'll be there in an hour, mate"? There's
Yeah,
two of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
James, I've got work in the morning. I can't come now, James. They're not your CPU. And it were the ones that, if you were poorly, and there'll only be probably about 5 or 6 in your life. And before we go, can I mention drains and radiators too?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. The drains and radiator, and this is helps because sometimes when you're drowning, I didn't realise it was drains that got me there. In my opinion, the whole of the world split into two categories. You're either a drain or you're a radiator. Now the drains, they drain the lifeblood out of you, they drain the positivity out of you, they drain every ounce of joviality out of your body, and they leave you, they suck you clean like vampires. Andy Cote calls them mood hoovers. My friend Mike calls them time bandits. That they steal you. You can't get rid of them. And the reason you can't get rid of them, James, because people say, just get rid of them, cut them out of your life. You can't. Because sometimes you might be married to one. I'm not, but you could be married to one. They could have given birth to you. They could have given birth to your partner. You could have given birth to them. You might work alongside with them. One of them might be your boss. You might be the boss to one of them. One of them might be your siblings. So they're all around. And you know who they are, James, because you say to them, like, my mother always used to say that the wind's always in the face. Let me just have a quick drink. And sorry, Mum, just have a quick drink.
All right.
And you know who they are, James, because they'll say, like, how you doing? Oh, James, I've had a terrible day today. Oh, James, this weather, it's too hot today. I don't, oh, James, that car, it's a bit fast. I wouldn't want to go that fast. I'm going on holiday next. Oh, I wouldn't go there. I've heard. The drains, but the opposite to drains are radiators, and they radiate kindness and love and prosperity, and they're brilliant people to be around. And what I did in the past, I went around trying to fix all the drains because I am a radiator. My mate Alicia said to me once, Dave, you're a central heating system, but I am definitely a self-confessed radiator. I can be a drain sometimes, but I'm aware of it. But because I'm a human being, but I choose to be a radiator. And I went round a few years ago trying to fix all the drains, and in the end, I fell in one and I couldn't get out. And the secret is, and this is really sad, they don't. I don't want them to be drains. I want them to be radiators. But they're quite happy being drains because that's
Yeah.
where all the self-esteem comes from. That's where all their interactions come from. That's all this everything. The self-worth is wrapped up in people feeling sorry for them, and they love being. They don't realise it, but they love being drains. So all I do is I limit my time with them, and that could be a family member or whatever. And you can't cut them out of your life, but right, I'm going to go and see X, who's a note. You might have a friend that you ring up. How you do? Oh, I'm having a terrible time. All you have to do is limit your time with them. You say, I'm going to ring Dave up. I'm going to give yourself 20 minutes. And even say to your partner, in 20 minutes time, can you knock the door or can you ring or something? And yeah, oh, that's terrible. Yeah, work's bad, is it? Oh, the cars, yeah, the kids, yeah, oh, that's terrible. And it's just all one-sided. And get you after, oh, sorry, mate, that's somebody at the door. But just give them 20 minutes because and I always think it's not very. But what happens if they want to tell you more? Because when you go, they'll get onto somebody else because they have to. They're like vampires.
Yeah.
They have to. They've always got ready. They've always got willing victims to go on to. So what I do is that I spend less and less time with them, and I recognise them. And I thought, and I chose not to. I choose not to be with them. I spend my time with positive people, like-minded people that make me happy, that make me smile. And that's what I do. When sometimes, like I said, when he's going back to the original question, if one of your listeners are drowning, it's because probably they've spent that much time with drains. And if you imagine you're in the sea and you've got, remember those old those cast iron Victorian drains? Oh, like a replica one here. It's like they've got 2 or 3 of them around the neck and they're pulling them down. It's just cut them off and just let them sink. But you've got to because self-preservation is the name of the game.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very powerful picture you can put into people's minds with that, with the drain, the radiator. Just to clarify that we've obviously, throughout this, I think it's an hour and a half, 90 minutes, we've talked about childhood healing, we talked about self-centered fear, humor, imposter syndrome, we've looked at signs and symptoms of self-centered fear. We've also looked at being silly and having fun and humor that kind of thing. And you mentioned about the idea of, so if you are stuck in self-centered fear, how you can overcome it by using that lifeboat idea. Can you finish off by telling us what is it that you do and how can people get in contact?
Fantastic. The string to my bow, the main thing that I do, on my thing is that I also perform as poet and wellbeing champion. So my work's split into two. What I love doing, and I always think, if you love it, if you were a millionaire, if I won the lottery, would I still do this? And I think I would. I'd still carry on doing this. Probably not full days. I'd do mornings, but I'd still do it. So the first thing is, I'm a poet. I've written 5 poetry collections, and I go into primary schools and I deliver whole school poetry days, which I love. And it's silly and it's funny and it's wiggle your bum and it's end of pier and it's just, you're smiling now. You're smiling now, and it's just really silly. So if you go onto my website, pepthepoet.co.uk, it's all on there. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, which is at Pep the Poet. And I put lots of poems on there and really silly, they're very silly poems. So that's the one side of me that I love. But the one I'm really passionate about, because I love that one and the children get a lot out of it, but it's very self-indulgent for me. I just love performing. I love being silly. But what I'm getting a lot of, what fulfills me as well is helping people. Like you said before, 8 years ago, I was in a really dark place and today I'm not. I live a beautiful life. So obviously, my other side to my string to my boat is I'm a wellbeing mentor. I give keynote talks talking about self-centered fear and anxiety. And it's about helping people become the better version of themselves they can. So for businesses, if you've got a workforce, you want them to be more productive, like members of staff been on long-term sick, retention of staff because they're leaving because they're sad. Go in there, give my message, and I do genuinely cheer people up, and I give them tools and strategies of how they can become the best person, the best version of themselves they can be. The way I describe myself is I'm not a doctor, I'm more of a chemist. You know, when you go on holiday and you might get a bit of a rash from the sea or whatever, you don't go to the doctor, you go to the chemist, and your broken English, you tell them, and they give you some cream and it heals it up. I feel like the chemist, if it's something really deep rooted, you might have to go to specialists, you go to the doctors or this. But if you're suffering from low self-centered fear and anxiety, I can give you strategies. I go into secondary schools and, like I say, I talk about fear, fear and anxiety, that imposter syndrome, that low self-worth, that fear of needing to fit in, children with behavior problems, vaping, just that peer pressure. Being the authentic you is just wonderful because you can only be yourself. I think it was Oscar Wilde said, only be yourself because everyone else is taken. And that, so I go in and I talk about being the authentic you. I talk about reintegrating the people people that are missing out in school, those that are disengaged. I help them become re-engaged. I talk about transitions from secondary school to primary school to secondary school, or from secondary school to sixth form. And I talk about exam pressure. That's how many young people, they just tell themselves they're going to fail their exams. But you have to put place in, first of all, is it real? Is it happening today? What can you do beforehand? And I give them strategies. So I'm a poet by day, and then for me growing up, I talk about self-centered fear and anxiety. And again, that's that website, got 2 different websites. That one's davidanderson.co.uk. No, it's not. It's davidanderson.uk. So the poetry is pepthepoet.co.uk. The talking that I do with adults, businesses, colleges, universities is davidanderson.uk. And I have got an Instagram, but I think it's Mr. _ David Anderson _ lots of underscores, but that was the nearest I could get to David. It's Mr. David Anderson _
I'll get all the links off you and we'll put it in the show notes and it'll be all accessible via that. Thank you very much, David.
I've had a lovely, absolutely, and I tell you what you just said, we've talked about this, imposter syndrome, and I thought, all it's been is a couple of mates having a cup of tea and a chat, and we've covered so much.
Definitely, in a 90-minute talk. So thank you.
God bless you, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Man, A Quest to Find Meaning. If today's conversation sparked something in you, take a moment to reflect, then take a step. Remember, Real growth comes from action, not just insight. If you found value in this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review, or reach out and let me know what resonated. Your feedback helps shape the journey we're on together. For more conversations like this, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for updates, tools, and upcoming guests. Remember, it's not about having the answers, it's about daring to look.